But how's the road been for you lately? Are things getting weird again?
Well, this is hard. I went to Indiana
Mm.
and they don't care that much.
No.
I have like jokes about FaceTime dating because in New York City, like we legit couldn't leave our house. And I was like, anyone FaceTime date? And normally in New York, there's a couple awkward people that raise their hand and people looked at me like I was an alien. And I was like, oh, you guys didn't stay in. But also like it's more spacious. Like New York, there's so many people. You go outside and there's someone just coughing in your face. So the road, the flights are very expensive right now,
Yeah.
which I've noticed. Um, people are I feel like people are still hesitant to be like, oh, let's just go out and be in a room crowded full of people, but the people who are down to do it are so excited to laugh. Like I feel like the energy is insane, but it's still like people, not everyone's back to normal with just like, let's do something social tonight.
Yeah, I made somebody cry the other day off of that. Because so when you're at full capacity, you have to, seat sometimes people at the same table. And she was like, I don't want to sit here with other people. I go, well, I don't know what to tell you. And then she like left crying, and I was just like, ah.
It's also hard because a lot of us low key love being alone, and it was great. And then it's hard to go from being alone to, yeah, like a crowded space. I think going alone to comedy clubs is what people need to do more often. It would bring a lot of joy to people's lives. Because also, I don't want to worry about my friend laughing at the weird stuff I find funny.
Ugh.
That's too much pressure. It's like showing a YouTube video and being like, that's funny, right? And the whole time
Right?
you're stressed
Just
out.
wait, just wait, just wait.
It's coming, it's coming.
Yo, nothing makes me more nervous than seeing people on like a first or second date to a comedy show. Because you're like, this is not gonna go
Because
well.
also you can't fully process the comic, like be in the moment because you're too aware of them laughing and they're aware of you laughing. And like, what if they have a weird laugh and it becomes like a Seinfeld episode? Also, I feel like the hecklers are next level. Not that I've been dealing with that many hecklers, but when people are bad, I feel like it's bad. But it's funny because I'm just like, we haven't been outside in a long time. Let them do their thing. Like in the city, New York City the other day, some guy just like fell asleep, like drank too much. And his girlfriend was like trying to wake him up. I'm like, bitch, let him sleep. You're making it more like distracting trying to wake him up.
Right.
I've also been doing outdoor shows in New York still.
Uh,
I know we have this like patio show, which is like all these top comics. It's like kind of an honor to be on, but I'm like bombing in front of pigeons. And then people like walk through because there's like the sidewalk in between the comic and the crowd that's on the road. So like full families, like 5-year-olds walking by and I'm telling like dick jokes. So that's been, but I feel like it's making us better comics because then when I get in a room like Helium that is like dark and low ceiling, I'm like, oh, this is what comedy's supposed to be. So
yeah, actually, I hadn't even thought about that because we had to have some outdoor shows here in like the back parking lot, and it was like, we were doing what we had to do, and I had to talk myself into, no, it's fine, people are having a good time, and then you get back into how it's supposed to be, and you're like, oh no, this is how it's supposed to go.
oh my God. I mean, I perform a lot at the Stand in New York City, and all the shows are great. But for the comic, it's different experiences. So there's a patio show, and then there's also a downstairs show, which is incredible. So I will be on the upstairs show and question all my material after. I'll be like, do I need to rewrite everything? And am I the worst comic that ever lived? Then I'll, 10 minutes later, do a show downstairs and be like, why don't I have a special out yet? So like it just shows you the perspective, but I really treat it like the challenge, and I think we're all getting better, becoming better at comedy by like having to focus on your joke while like a car is about to like crash into another car, and you're just like stay focused, and you're worried someone's gonna steal your purse behind you. Like it's made me a better comic.
And I guess I was gonna say, like, in what way has that changed? Not maybe your material, but your stage presence, right? Because on our outdoor shows, we've had cops pull up and someone be like, "Get out of here!" Like, it changes how everything works.
Yeah, like garage doors opening and closing, or like there's an air conditioning and it's like, are we in a plane? Why does it sound like this? It's funny because as a podcaster, I don't like listening to myself talk afterward, but I guess I like using my voice and the sound of my voice for humor, and there's like a timing to it, and I'm not like a yelly comic, but I've become a full-on yelly comic. Like I joke, like I love Jared Freed, and he like is in your face,
Oh,
tells
he's
his
the loudest
audience.
guy I've ever met.
Like he will do a podcast, and in Brooklyn and in Queens, I'm like, Jared Freed's on a podcast, and I will be like, I showed up Jared Freed that outdoor show because they can hear you in the mics, but you can't really hear yourself. It's like an Ariana Grande concert thing, and I'm like, is this thing on? So I will just yell, and it kind of changes everything about the joke when you're yelling it to people.
Yeah.
So I've almost just learned like different ways jokes can hit. I learned that certain things are funnier, like, okay, you definitely can't yell that joke. That joke will never work when you yell it. And then some jokes that I'm like, maybe I should yell that joke. So I've had to change my delivery based on like the variables of the situation with COVID.
Has it made you change your writing at all too? Like I saw in a park a guy bombed for 10 minutes and then he walked. So most people, when they're done, they like walk through and dap everybody. He walked behind through the woods. Like it was so bad that dude was like, I'm just gonna disappear.
He was like, where are the bears? Just bite my head off.
Right, because I think he was used to, comedy club stuff. He can be like, hey, this guy knows what I'm talking about, and to get some kind of laugh, but his shit was not working at all. And I'm wondering if people have to, not necessarily get sharper with the material, but you almost have to make sure this will work outside. And then, when you're inside, it works easier. But has it changed how you like writing your things and coming up with premises?
Well, it's interesting because you kind of have to change your framework of what you expect from the crowd, because the laughter outside, because people are also spaced out, like the laughter just dissipates. Like it'll start and then it goes. So like I joke, like if you're seeing smiles, you're doing it. And like you were literally a street performer. So like in my head, I just changed my standard. Like if I see a little air come out of their nose, I'm like, that joke worked. Because it's so true how just the space and it changed. And then when people aren't hearing other people's laughs that loud, they're not gonna laugh as loud. And when I first started comedy, I didn't realize this stuff. I didn't realize how important it is and how much comics really care about the laughter. But it's important. And when you're testing out new material outdoors, you have to factor that in. I'm going to say stupidly, but like I was feeling myself a little on an outdoor show, and I decided to close with like a new joke I thought of because I was being cocky, and that was the dumbest thing. I haven't even touched that material since. Maybe if I was indoors and we were just riding some energy, I could have pulled it off. But it's not a place where I practice very new jokes, or you just like go off and decide, okay, we're not going to be a powerful, like quick, laughy show. Like let's tell a story I haven't done in a while. And then I also think I've done more crowd work, because you can't turn off that you're outside. So it's more fun to like when a family goes across and a girl's holding a Barbie doll, like maybe just start riffing about how Barbie is bad for her body image in the future and like talk on that. So I think it's kind of like I've lost my perfectionist side to me a little, where I used to go on stage and I'm like, this is the order of the jokes, this is how it's gonna go. And now I go up there and I'm just proud that we're doing comedy, and I'm a little looser, which is actually helping me find kind of more opportunities in my material.
Yeah, I've noticed too, outside it seems more like a vent for people. So inside there'll be, like 5% of dudes with flip-flops or whatever, but outside's like 35. Like they're out there more like, hey, we're having a good time. Like we're not necessarily here to see a structured show. We're just like, we're out. It's almost, movie in the park. It's not the same as a movie. It's like
brunch vibes. Like some people come to like a 6 o'clock outdoor show on a Sunday and they are drunk. They've been drinking mimosas all day. And you kind of have to acknowledge that like you're a part of their experience, kind of. Because it's like you're outdoors, you are in their realm, you're in their habitat. So I just think comics used to be really fickle of like, oh, like the ceiling's a little too high, and oh, that crowd was stupid. And now it's like, we're out here just trying to survive. And I think perspective is like really key right now for surviving in comedy. And then also when you do get a gig and you do get a great weekend, such as at Helium, it is just so much fun.
Now you had like a kind of strange start, because you started comedy big, right? Like you know what I mean? Like you didn't have to go through the whole like laundromat shows and shit like that. You were kind of able to start from a level of like made it. Do you think that has kind of changed how you view clubs, or is it still the same for you as anyone else?
I have a very different upbringing with comedy. I had when I was 25, I was still working in marketing, sales. I was a former tennis player. I wanted to do something with video. I wanted to be an entertainer. And I got a gig just writing like tweets and memes for this like millennial media company, and it became like a boot camp of like I was writing so many tweets and memes, and at first you're like, this is just silly stuff, but you start to understand like how to make jokes hit. I started writing 60-second videos, so it was a lot of writing, and then I liked being on camera. And then I started my podcast because I got on a reality TV show, and I liked having a podcast. Still, stand-up never was a part of it wasn't a goal. I was dating a stand-up at the time, and I loved the community in New York, and I loved it, but I still am one of those people who I'm like, I'm funny, but I'm not a stand-up. But then New York Carolines in New York City reached out to me and said, we'd love to do a live podcast with you. Live podcasts are really in right now. And my friend was like, open with 10 minutes of stand-up. And I was like, no, you're crazy. But my tweets had been going viral. And I know to a lot of some comics are like, oh, tweets are stupid. But like the best comics have the best tweets. Because like it's kind of like some of them are just premises. Some are even just like setups. Some are just punchlines. But if you look at your tweets, you see like what your brain wants to laugh at. And I kind of took all my tweets and I was like, okay, these are about food. These are about dating. These are about cats. And then like trying to form like real jokes, and some would hit out loud, some don't. But I think we're learning as comics, like whether it's TikTok or Instagram or Twitter, there's so many different mediums that we can make things funny, but it's nuanced how you do it. So the first time I did stand-up comedy was 10 minutes in front of 250 people at Caroline's. And after the show, also
you also don't know better.
I have a stupid confidence. I have a stupid confidence where I'm like, why not? No one told me like bad idea. No one told me anything. I just was like, why the fuck not?
Only 250? Whatever.
I was like, why not? And I grew up in like a family that just made each other laugh, and we always loved doing funny speeches, and I wasn't that scared. Maybe because I had like a lot of performance anxiety with tennis, which is something I did for a long time, where like I was used to like second serve, 6 on the tie break, if you lose, your whole team loses. So I was kind of like, pressure to me was skewed. I was like, at least I'm not fucking on a tennis court where I could lose my scholarship if I mess up, I'm just talking to people. And everyone after the show was like, the first 10 minutes was our favorite. And I remember a bunch of New York comics were there who I was friends with, and they pulled me aside and they were like, look, if you want to make it as a stand-up in New York, you have potential, but to get respect, like you have to do the laundromat shows, you have to do the basement shows. And they like to say you have to bomb, which like I don't really agree with, but maybe you're not like trying out new enough material if you're not bombing but you don't have to bomb the whole time, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So basically they were like, any show you get asked to do, you have to say yes. So that's what I did. I just said yes to every single show I got asked to do. I did barbershop shows, basements of restaurants, like bathrooms of restaurants, like just crazy shit. But also people don't talk too about when people know you for something other than comedy, like reality TV. Sometimes the first 5 minutes on stage, people are still processing like, oh, this is what she's like in real life, or like they're not comedy audiences, they don't know how to laugh. So it's a different experience, but I feel fortunate for a couple of reasons. One, as a female in comedy, I'm very lucky that I'm at the point where I've made some money that I can like Uber to a late night spot in Brooklyn. Where like if I was an up and coming comic that didn't have money as a girl.
Oh, my bad.
It's okay.
I got a severe heat warning.
Oh shit.
Yeah. It's real out here in Portland.
It's really hot here too. I'm in a sundress indoors.
It's smart. Hold on. This is okay. All right. My bad. The burden of having 2 phones is 2 alerts.
Okay, humble brag. He's busy. Um, but yeah, so I feel like a lot of girls don't get into comedy because the scene is kind of tough when you're like taking the subway at midnight to go to a bar just full of drunk men. Like it's not fun, or like welcoming. There's not like, hey, here's tampons, let's party. Like it's not like that. And then also I have an audience, but at the end of the day, the audience decides if you're funny or not your Instagram following. So you have to convince those people like, hey, you liked me on TV, but do you like my stand up? And I just feel fortunate that I can experience the like small crowd working on new material and then book a weekend and be able to be at Helium in front of 300 people.
Right. Yeah, I
But
got to
yeah,
talk to Jared about it a little bit, and it's always interesting. Jared Freed. It's always
mhm,
interesting to me because he has like those bachelor people who are like um, and he like loves and appreciates them, and he handles them well. For you, coming off a reality show, I mean, when you're doing the laundromat shows and stuff, and you're in the bathroom of a restaurant doing those sets,
mhm.
people don't care. But when you are at a 300 room, I'm assuming 70% are there because they've seen you off reality TV.
Yeah.
How do you kind of go against that where you're like, all right, I know where you know me from, but
Mhm.
I'm telling jokes about my cat. I'm not here to like tell stories and behind the scenes shit.
It's funny. I also started my first tour right before the pandemic hit. Like I did DC, LA, and then I did Cobb's on March 9th, and that's when everything got shut down. And March 9th was when the show first started to get popular. And I remember during my set at one point someone
Who's
like,
behind you?
"Oh, that's my fiance."
Oh, okay.
His name's Des. He's a comic too.
Oh, what up,
You
Des?
thought
Yeah.
someone like broke into my apartment.
I
I
was
just didn't
nervous. You
know.
know what I mean? My worst
He's
fear
like,
with
"Who's
this
that behind you?"
is that someone gets murked on
You
camera.
just watch him like take my TV and like walk out. You're like, do you need that?
Okay, my bad, my bad.
Like, oh,
Yeah, I
that's just a
you know.
seamless guy. I let him in. Thanks for looking out, though. That's so funny. Oh yeah, I had people like yell during the set like names of other cast members on the show, like they wanted me to talk about them, and like at first I would kind of play into it and like riff a little, and then it throws everyone off, and you're like taking them on this story, and it got kind of crazy. But then I realized like, well, the show got really big in quarantine, so I wasn't able to do stand up. And now that I've like reemerged, I think people are actually more interested in seeing what I'm really like
Yeah.
than seeing like the generic interview type political answers I make. Like, oh, reality TV is really fun and stuff like that. So they're actually like, oh, what's Hannah really talking about? What are her real feelings? And my stand up comedy is way more interesting than like the surface me on reality TV, I think.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So then you get people who, especially I think being after the pandemic where people had to sit around for a while and it became a thing where I'm more into you off of your social media or whatever, and I got to kind of sit back and watch you as a person as opposed to what's presented to me. Because
Yeah.
the worst crowds are people who are coming to see like Bob Saget or someone like that, where they're just like, I know this guy off TV and I just want to like yell, you know, sucking dick for and you're like, shut
Yes.
the fuck. And the best crowds are people who are comedy fans who are like, I'm just coming on a Thursday. I'm a huge fan. I had to get my ticket. Now let me kind of enjoy who this person is, as opposed to I hope I get a picture.
Well, it's funny because where I play a lot at the stand, typically like you get a lot of couples, you get guys in flip-flops, but I've been getting this new audience of like just like girls who want to drink espresso martinis and listen to me, where they're not traditional comedy fans, but the girls who follow me are girls who have a great sense of humor. So it's like this kind of new like crowd that like you have to train them a little, like, oh, don't clap, like laugh, and like little things like that. But also my favorite thing that I get is when people are like, hey, I went to the show because I came to a show because I love you in Summer House, and I wasn't expecting anything really, but you were really, really funny. And I think that's where people have to remember, like, I did not come out of the womb like I want to be a reality TV star. It's something that happened to me, but like before reality TV, I was always really into comedy. And it's funny, people like Theo Vaughn, he was Real World, and people forget that. I think in New York especially, there's a real kind of ladder to how to become a respected stand-up, and especially as a woman, like you don't always fit into that ladder that might not be accepting of you in a lot of ways. But I think I'm in a really unique time where like stand-ups that are very respected in New York City are like hitting me up to come on my podcast or asking me tips about TikTok, or I'm asking them tips about TikTok. And I think we're in an interesting time. And what I love about comedy is you're funny, you're funny. It doesn't matter where you come from, how you got there. And I'm so happy that we can do live comedy again.
Well, I haven't even thought about this. It's almost been something in my in my mind or my thoughts, but I haven't like voiced it. But as people get better, the crowds become younger and better looking. And so I'm like my man Dan Cummins. He was like okay for a long time. He barely sold, and then his podcast started to hit off. And then I was like, there's like some good looking ladies in this place. Like this is fantastic. And I think what happens is you do get that popularity, and then you get people who don't necessarily go out to comedy shows, but when someone is funny, they're like, oh, I'm gonna keep coming back. And so for comedy clubs, it's almost a benefit to have a younger, cooler headliner, or you know, a younger, cooler generation coming out and seeing stand up.
Yeah, and then I get worried. Like I just turned 30 last week, and I'm like, holy shit, like do I just have 6 more years of being like, or 5 more years of being like the hot young girl? But then I realized like your crowd is gonna grow with you. Like we're all gonna get gray hairs at the same time. Like we're all gonna start having kids or complain about not having kids. So like you realize you're starting to have this fan base that will grow with you. But I think it's so funny when I go to these comedy shows and the like feature or the opener will be like, I've never performed in front of this many hot people, and I'm like, I'm not trying to brag, but my crowd is like hot, smart, successful women, and welcome. And like these guys will get so nervous because they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, just be yourself, they'll love you. And then I'll give the crowd their like Instagram handle so they get laid that night. Everyone is happy, it all works out. We just have to breathe and believe in ourselves.
So funny that that's the new brag. It used to be like, oh, my fans, you know, are nice or my fans tip. Now it is honestly like, no, my fans are freaks, yo, and they're good looking. It's so fucking cool that is really changed in like the last 2.5 years. Because you do have, you know, like yourself, you have like Girls Gotta Eat podcast, you have the Guys We Fuck. They're bringing out all these very cool, fun ladies.
Yeah. Well, I've been on Call Her Daddy like 4 times. Let's just say they bring the crowd, and these girls are amazing. And like, there's nothing I'm afraid to say on stage. There's nothing I'm afraid to talk about. But the crazy thing with having fans is, in order to have fans, you have to have non-fans, if that makes sense. Like you have to be authentic to yourself to the point that some people are like, I don't like Hannah, she's too crude. Or like, I don't like how Hannah's acted this type of way. Because if people don't like you, that means people love you. And that's like my latest thing that I'm grappling with as I've gotten kind of more like platforms seeing me. So I'm kind of seeing the kind of people that I do vibe with. And yeah, because in the beginning you just have people that watch TV, and then it gets smaller to like people who have this kind of sense of humor. But I like to lie to myself and just be like, yeah, all the hottest, smartest, most independent women love me. So that's my favorite. They're all funnier than me. They're amazing. Like they're incredible. So, because some people like don't like their fans, and I'm like, maybe you don't like yourself, you know?
Right, because your fans are almost a indication of who you are. You know what I mean? If you have bad fans, and
they're not being authentic to themselves on stage, which is actually very difficult to do. And I'm still working that in my comedy, because I think the more years you're in, the more you understand your voice. But even if you're a non-comic, it's hard to understand your voice and what you stand for. So yeah, we're just getting philosophical.
No, I love it. How do you work on finding your voice? Because I don't think I've ever talked to somebody who was doing stand-up before they had their voice, really. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I have this voice, I have this opinion, this persona, and now I got to go on stage and kind of half keep that up and half change to where I want to be.
Well, I think I do come from a background of like marketing, branding, and sales. So everything is like kind of selling yourself and how you want to be portrayed. And for me, I noticed when I was writing jokes for this millennial media brand, I saw the jokes they were rejecting that I thought was funny. And I realized like they were more like very kind of cool girl, aspirational humor, where I was much more like goofy, raw, vulnerable humor. So I immediately knew stuff that I wanted to tweet on my page and stuff I was going to pitch them to tweet. So I immediately and then I talk about astrology, I talk about cats, and I think people started to love my tweets because they would see a tweet and be like, Hannah said that. Or like they could hear my voice saying it. And I started, and I hate to say like, oh, this is on brand or off brand, but like it just grew over time of like, I like tall guys who go to therapy. I like cats. I like astrology. I like fart jokes. I like being open about like thinking I'm hotter than I am. Like there's things that I've like just like latched onto and then just grew from there. So like I have a base of like really stupid qualities that I know are authentically me that some people relate to and some people don't. Some people, like I have about 7 minutes about why I love cats and why I don't understand people don't love cats. And there's the half the audience will be like, yes, preach, like I'm a missionary for cats. And then the other half are like, I hate cats, but I see what she's saying. It's valid. So like I've just kind of been owning my shit. And I think also when I went to, now I'm just going on rants, but
Let's do it.
when I went on reality TV, they very much like to characterize you. Like, are you the hot one? Are you the hot mess? Are you the kind of fragile, weak one? Are you the strong one? And I never fit into one of those. I always was like, I'm sporty and independent, but I'm also depressed and I have anxiety. And I also feel sexy sometimes, but I also will like fart accidentally. So like, where am I? And I think in my comedy, I'm able to find that complexity of like, I'm not just hot or I'm not just the funny girl, and I could be all those things. And that's why I love having that control of my narrative.
Well, yeah, I think my favorite thing about stand-up, and you see this a lot with actors and stuff. I don't love them doing it if they suck, but you can just go out and do it, and I can say what I want to say, and if you talk, somebody's going to kick you out, and it's like I get to shape exactly how I want to come off.
Yeah, and I think being on reality TV is hard because they'll kind of construct a story that you're not in control of, and I am a control freak. And going on reality TV was like, I was like facing a fear, and it scared the hell out of me. Yeah. So then doing stand-up, I feel so much more at peace. They actually say stand-up is very similar to tennis or like boxing, where like tennis, I was out alone on a stage performing with the variables of the weather, and if the other person had a good forehand. So, and I would travel every weekend to different hotels. So I actually feel like I'm living this like second life, but way more creative and more fun. Where tennis, like if you lost, there was an L on your name and you were out. Where if you bomb, you're like, I was working on stuff. You know?
Yeah, right. That though is such a weird thing to have as in a person, because most people are terrified of public speaking. Like my friend Alex has this joke where he's like, most people are terrified of public speaking. Clap if you are, and someone will clap you back. Do you want to tell us about it? And they freak out. So it's like, it is a thing that I think that comics have where you're not afraid to bomb. And to be good, you have to not be afraid to bomb, because you can't come and do the same, 10 minutes over and over and over. You have to expand and stretch.
People always say that, like, aren't you afraid to bomb? And I think early on I realized, like, there's an art to bombing. Like, some of your funniest, biggest laughs can be off of a joke that doesn't hit, and then being like, oh, now your buttholes are tightening up because of that. Or like, oh, sorry, I didn't know this was like a Disney fan club. Or like, you just make a joke off the joke. So I also feel like it's less like, did that hit, did that not? And it's more like the overall relationship you're having with the crowd. So I guess like I was never scared of bombing, because I have a weird thing where I don't get embarrassed.
Oh, what a
easily.
Superpower.
Thank you. But
Yeah.
it's I think like my dad would always try to embarrass me when I was younger, and I'm like, Dad, you're just funny. Like, you're not embarrassing me. And I've also done like a lot of stupid shit. Like I'm clumsy. Like I've kind of bombed everywhere in life, to the point that I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? Like I've done so many embarrassing things. So I think I'm like, it's not embarrassing to like try to be a stand-up and possibly not do well. But I do think also stand-ups are weirdos, and it took me a while to realize that. And I think reality TV is full of like people who want to fit in and be aspirational. And part of it, I was like, I don't really fit in, because like I'm kind of a loner. I have social anxiety. I'm kind of like I like to be on my own performing, I'm a control freak. I'm a workaholic. I don't really like partying that much. Like there's a lot of weird sides to me that I think actually more people relate to than you know. And for whatever reason I've been given the power to like not be scared to say it out loud. And I feel like that's my corny like purpose is to like
Right.
talk about things most girls would never say out loud.
Well, and yeah, like you said, there's a thing about going to a comedy club that you're allowed to laugh at the things that you don't say out loud. I mean,
Hmm.
I've talked to people where they're like, it's almost a speakeasy thing, and that's why I like going downstairs in the clubs. Because you're like, ooh, we're in the dark, and she's gonna talk about cum or something, or he's gonna talk about having a finger in his butt. Oh my God, my friend did. It's something about it that is so let's laugh cathartically that
Yep.
I don't think you could get in anything else. Maybe a play or
Yep.
something if you're like,
Well,
oh,
even like a podcast, we talk crazy, but it's just me and you giggling. But I have a new joke that is freaking me out because I talk about like how sex is very unrealistic in movies. And I'll talk about like the different positions and things they do that just is not a thing. And I'm like, I want realistic sex in movies. Like, I want to see a girl riding a guy and she kind of loses rhythm and the dick falls out and she almost snaps it. Like, that's the drama I want. People lose it, and then I will pause because they like if I'm in a big room they will lose it and I go, how many dicks have been snapped? And I thought this was just like maybe once or twice this might have happened to me. Everyone laughs and I'm like, is this a real problem like that men need to stand up and speak about? So like I had no idea this shit was relatable. And it's crazy that like people are basically raising their hand being like, I've snapped a dick before. Like, when would you see 300 people say that? So that's like the beauty in I just like poke crazy things out there and realize like, oh, it's not so crazy. It's just sometimes you lose rhythm.
I mean, yeah. Um, so for you, you're going into a city on Thursday, let's say, and you're walking into the club. What are
Mhm.
things that you see in that club that you're like, oh, okay, this is gonna be all right, or they have their shit together, or are there things that you see where you're like, oh, this is gonna be a long fucking weekend?
Good question. Good question. I like a dark room. I the typical stuff. I love a dark ceiling. I like good vibe music. Like if they're playing like kind of like good hip hop or like early 2000s, I'm like it's a vibe. Like I feel like we're gonna have like I want to feel like people are having fun and they're ready to have fun. If I go in the green room and you know there's a lot of signing on the walls, that's a good vibe. It means the comics are proud to have been there.
Right.
Um, and overall, when I think the wait staff and the management is yeah like down to have a good time because it's like hard to when things are high strung be like okay thank you I'm gonna go make good like dick jokes now and you walk out. So I like when like everyone's down to have fun. I especially now that I'm headlining it's like I want the hosts to be comfortable, I want the feature to be comfortable, I want everyone to feel like they can have their routines, pre-show routines, and no one's like stepping on anyone's toes. And I kind of like to think of it as like a team. Like we're a team. It's if I want the feature and the opener to crush because then the show was better. I don't want people to leave being like, oh yeah, Hannah was funny, but that one feature, what was wrong with them? I'm like, let's go team, let's fucking crush this show. And their energy helps me too. Like when I'm fourth show in, feeling a little tired, I like to look in their eyes and be like, we're in this together. So it's funny how there really is stand up is so much more of a community than a lonely thing, even though it seems lonely.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing because it is a lonely thing where you're going somewhere every week,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere different, new atmosphere, new vibe, everything's different. But the person who was there after you is going to ask about you, and the
Mm-hmm.
person who was there before you is going to ask about you. So it's a very
Mm-hmm.
weird troubadour type shit where
Oh yeah.
everyone's talking about everyone,
It is a
but you never really run
small
into
world,
people.
I feel like, because I'm like newer to the headlining scene, and immediately like when you meet someone, you all know the same people. You throw stuff around. People have similar opinions on things. But I also feel like yeah, you're in this world together, and energy feeds off energy, and if you're giving good energy, that shit will spread. That shit will manifest. I have like pre-show rituals. Like I'm pretty relaxed before shows. I like to not be like, oh my God, this is a show. Like I like to get to know people. Like you wouldn't even know I'm about to get on stage in 3 minutes. But then I like to go to the bathroom and sit there and have like a moment, get a nervous pee out, whatever. like maybe look at my set list or not, depending on how comfortable I'm feeling, and then go. Like I just need that pre-bathroom, and people start to realize it. Like you show like, okay, Hannah's going to the bathroom now. Everyone shut the fuck up. But that's all I really need. But I know some headliners are like, don't, like I need to look at my notes for 30 minutes beforehand, or that. So, but everyone's different, and just like respecting it, and then overall realizing like it takes a lot of people to make a good comedy show work. It's not just you. And yeah, making sure that you and the waiter know when you want the food, and you're coordinating so everyone can do their job easy and the least amount of stress.
Have you been to a place and played a whack ass playlist?
Yeah, I mean, I've been at a place, like some place I've played in New York, not like a headlining gig, but where I'm just like, this bar is like not vibing. Like the people don't like the music. It was like hard rock or something, and I was like, this is not the kind of party I want to be at. So it's hard to be like, I'm the MC of this party that I fucking hate.
Right.
Or if you feel just like the place is corny, then you just have to kind of embrace it and be like, yeah, we're playing in like a music hall, it looks like. Or I'll be like, this looks like a secret garden that is about to burn down. So you just have to kind of embrace whatever you're around. But I do also think that comedy clubs are evolving, and like they're getting like the fun drinks that people might want, and I'm just excited to like see places evolve after COVID on like how entertaining they could be.
Right. Well, that's I think one of my favorite things that I've done is for the past 7 years I do a different playlist every night.
Nice.
So based off like the comic, like for Brian Posehn, it's metal. So if you're playing metal, all his people are like, yeah, this is gonna be.
Well,
great.
yeah, that's their vibe. Exactly. So like I don't want the vibe to not be me. And I think it's important. At first they're like, oh, what kind of song do you want to come up to? And I'm like, I don't care. And then I realize it's important. It's
Yeah.
A$AP Rocky fucking Problems. Like that's what we're doing. And then I'll have like a guy feature, and we'll joke, and I'll be like, go on to like Shania Twain, like it'll be so good. So like just having a vibe of not taking yourself too seriously. But I love the walk-up songs. I do think they're very important, because you feel like a baseball player about to hit a home run for those like 4 seconds.
Yeah, for the record, the people who are like, just pick whatever you want, I'm having a nervous breakdown.
And that's like a new everyone's like, yeah, pick whatever, and they're like, fuck.
Oh,
Because you know,
my
comics
God.
are sensitive and picky and have like serious identity shit. Like
But then
that's
the
a
best
trick.
feeling is when they're like, they come out like, oh, and you're like, yes, I got him. They didn't know this song and I got him.
I know it's good though when I'm like waiting in the green room and like people are filling in and I hear a song and I'm like singing to it. I'm like, we're gonna have a night. I also want to pitch this, but I think that comics should also have like a drink of the night that represents them. So people will have fun to be like, oh, I want like the Berner bomb or something. And it's
What's
like,
in the burner bomb?
who knows? I just made that up just now, but it's probably like fireball and then like diarrhea. I don't know, but I think that like it's comedy is like, as there's more people who are not just traditional like guys in flip-flops, and it's people who want like that experience. Like I think you're right, like the music, the drinks, like the kind of fried food that you want. You're gonna get a stomach ache, but you're gonna do it. That's what's important.
Well, it took me a couple of months to realize it, but most people come out just for you. So they've never been to Helium before.
Yeah.
They just know you off of your presence, like, oh, I got to go to Helium or wherever you're at and see Hannah. And then they may never come back. Or they might come back in a year. But it's not like a movie theater where people go maybe multiple times a year. It's a once in a couple
But
of
like
year
that's
thing.
I want it to be like, I went to University of Wisconsin. That's where I played tennis, and Comedy on State is known as like a great comedy club. I didn't know at the time, but I knew that like Friday nights I'd rather be sitting watching a comic speak their observations about life than like at a bar listening to a frat guy talk about the Brewers. Like that's what I wanted to do. So I think I want to cultivate that, like going to a comedy club is an option for a fun night. And there's always like a nice bar outside of it. And I just think more people need to do it and have it. Like, I think it's way better than a corny movie that's overpriced.
Yeah.
But
I
we're
mean,
biased.
and for most movies you can see, and it's the same experience. For stand-up, there is one way to experience it, and that is sitting your ass in a seat with other people.
I also think like you could watch stand up on TV and tons of people are going crazy of stand-up on TV and stand-up on YouTube. But like I'm telling you, live is so much better, having the energy. And I think I'm hoping that especially with more female comics, like my podcast did well because I collaborated with other podcasts, such as like Girls Gotta Eat and Call Her Daddy. And there's enough to go around. So I kind of want to be like, I mean, I think a lot of comics are really good at cross-promoting comics, but I hope people who like Taylor Tomlinson will definitely be like me, and people who like me will like Nikki Glazer, and people who like Nikki Glazer like Ali Wong, and then there's like you discover the male comics through it, because I feel like a lot of guys love my comedy and a lot of girls would like love Nate Bargatze or something. So I think it's really like coordinating, like it's not a one and done. It's like if you like Hannah, believe me, you'll like other comics too. She's not like saying crazy shit that is not going to compare to anyone else, you know?
Right. Yeah. It's like, I do love when it starts to feed on itself, where I saw Nate and I like Dan Soder. And if I see Dan, you know what I mean? And if I see Dan, I might like
Shane.
Yeah.
Shane Gillis.
Yeah. It's like, whatever. Let me just see more comics, because especially when you're dealing with Heliums, 95% of all the comics are A-level and great. So you're not going to see somebody who is not going to give you a great performance.
No,
and the goal
maybe
is just
someone won't be like as relatable to you, but I personally love comics who are different than me. Like my favorite comics are like Pete Lee, because like I could never do that. Like I don't even know what he's doing, and it's so different that it's so fun for me to experience. Or like Rory Scovel, I like love Rory Scovel, and you would never look at me and be like, she's a huge Rory fan, but I am. So I think like if people are listening now and they're fans of mine, it's like check out all these other comics that I look up to, because you guys will like them if I do.
Of course. All right, so thank you for coming on. We got the last segment's going to be notes from a producer. I got a couple questions we'll ask, and then we'll just wrap it up. But for real, thank you so much for. I'm glad it worked out.
Thank you for having me. I want to go to Portland so bad because I've never been. I'm like a New York City hick.
You've never been to Portland?
No.
I have this much power, and I'm gonna just annoy the
people. Talk to your people, because I was like, oh, we're talking to Helium Portland. I'm like, why the fuck am I not going there? So I mean,
truth be told, they were like, Nick, you're gonna do this podcast, and it has nothing to do with where you live. They're like, I think you might be the best person to talk to people. So kudos or whatever, but. But yeah, for everybody hearing and listening who have power, get Hannah to Portland.
But I am in Kansas City coming up. A Helium in Kansas City.
Yeah, you also have Bananas, I think, coming up or something.
Yeah, Bananas.
You got a whole ass tour going on.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny because I was just like, hey, I'm doing a tour. And my agent was like, you have to book places to do a tour. And I'm like, start booking them. I'm announcing a tour. So my tour wasn't like fully fleshed out. I just was like, here's my tour. And I had like 5 dates. And then it just keeps filling up. And I'm like, more tour. Because I've never done a tour before. So I'm just doing it my way. But yeah, we're just filling up dates. And I'm going to be in a lot of places.
Damn, can't wait. All right, so first question. Was there anything that surprised you about comedy club culture when you first started working clubs?
I feel like the amount of fried food that you can get at any time.
Yeah.
Like at any time. Like I could be like mid-set, bring me a mozzarella stick or a fried pickle. And you just have to learn, not that I'm a healthy eater, but like you have to navigate how to perform a 7:30 and a 10 o'clock show while somehow eating and somehow not getting a stomach ache. And no one talks about that. And a lot of comics are really weird. Like they won't eat until after the show. And I'm like, I need carbs. I'll die. I can't wait till midnight. And then, so yeah, you just have to figure that stuff out. And also that green rooms aren't green.
You thought green rooms are green?
I thought green rooms were green. And some of them are, which is pretty confusing.
To me, it's almost corny at this point.
Yeah.
But I do think green rooms green.
Green rooms, like, I think places could get like a little more fun with them. I'm not trying to be like a diva. I just think they get more fun. Like it doesn't have to look like where frat guys like abuse each other, Like it could be more silly or decorative in some way.
See, mine I think looks like a dentist waiting office.
So it's clean.
Yeah,
sometimes
but like,
they just have the black couch, like the black leather couch, and maybe a fridge, and then like a random table,
That's a different kind of room.
I'm like, am I getting kidnapped in here? There's just one light that like goes on and off.
Right.
I'm like, I don't even put me in the green room at this point. I'll sit at the bar.
All right. So, what's an interaction with a fan that sticks out to you?
I had a really great interaction with a fan in Indianapolis where in the morning I went to brunch at a random bar and a huge bachelorette party came in and it was 11 a.m. and the bride recognized me. She was like, oh my God, Hannah Berner. I know you from whatever. And I was like, she was like, will you come on my, you know those, it's like a trolley that
that you have to fucking pedal and they're like,
yeah, I call it, it's a Midwest Peloton. Like that shit, no thank you. And she was like, come on the trolley with us. And I'm like, how do I say this in the nicest way possible? I'd rather do anything than that. But I was like, but at 10 o'clock, I have tickets still available for my show at Helium. And I was like, you're going to be blackout because it's only noon and you're already drunk. But like, if you can make it, I'll put your name down. I'm going to comp you because I don't know anyone in Indiana. This bitch showed up at 10 p.m. with all her bridesmaids. And she, like the beginning, it was like a minute of back and forth. And I had to be like, okay, this isn't a back and forth. You need to sit down. But like, thank you. But it was just so cool that this girl on her bachelorette party day was like, I'm going to see Hannah at 10 o'clock no matter what shit. Like, who knows what they went through that day, how many shots they took of, you know, whatever disgusting stuff. So yeah, that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that so rarely happens when someone, because I'll get texts from people like, hey, I just ran into this person at the Nike store or something, put them on, and they never show up. So the fact that the whole party made it through.
You know how many Uber drivers, like I'll be on, what are you doing? Oh, I have comedy. Hey, come to my show. I'll put your name in. Never come. This girl brought all the girls. She was like, can you comp them all? And I was like, no, I need to make money, but I'll comp you. And they came.
Wait, you're still telling Uber drivers you do comedy?
Yeah. Well, like I'll be in random places and they'll be like, what do you do? And I'm like, comedy, come to my show. I'm trying to sell tickets. I don't give a shit.
Right.
I'm pushing. I'm at the hotel. Like people are like, oh, I'm like, you guys want to come tonight? Like I am out here pushing tickets.
Word. I can't wait till you get to the point where you're like, what are you doing? And you're like, paralegal.
Well, no, it's funny. It depends on the Uber driver. And most of the time, I'm like, I say like I'm in, I don't know what I say. I think like accounting or some shit, something boring. Right. But if they're fun and I like them, I'll be like, I'm doing comedy. Come to the show tonight. Man. And then they'll just like make their own jokes and be like, you should talk about me on stage. And I'm like, okay, well.
Use that in your material.
They love that. Like, cool. What are you gonna do? Use me in your material? I'm like, exactly. This is the funniest thing I've ever seen. Oh God.
And then last question, what's your next career move?
Ooh. This is crazy. I want to get into comedic acting. And I said crazy because going from reality TV to acting is just like, that doesn't happen. But I look at people like Dave, who was making like silly music, and now he never did stand up, and then he just does, like he wrote his own TV show. That would be a dream of mine. And then people want me to like get into a book or stuff, but I don't feel ready to write a book. I'm like, I have more shit to live. And even a funny book, I'm waiting for the right like feeling, because you can't force a book. That's a lot of work to fake.
Terrible book if you force it. But I think what a lot of people don't realize about stand-ups and why they usually are good actors is you have 5-6 shows a week. Mm-hmm. You're not feeling all of them, and you have to give a great performance for all of them. Or you're about to walk on stage and some guy like grabs your ass at the bar or something crazy, and you're like, I'm not in a fucking mood to do this show, and you have to go and do the show. I think it helps like flex that muscle of fabrication or phoning.
And yeah, you have to compartmentalize things. Mm-hmm. I feel like stand-up is 100% acting, because yeah, I go out there, you don't feel good, or like some jokes you're like, I've been saying this joke a little too long, but I need to say it like it's the first time I've ever said it. Or like some people, like my friends were joking, Andrew Schultz tells this one joke where you really believe that he's just coming up with this part of the joke at the end every single time. It's like it just popped up. Or my friend Brendan Sagalow has a joke where he pretends he says a word wrong and corrects himself, and it's really funny. And I was like, oh my God, that mistake was like really good. And he was like, yeah, it was on purpose, stupid. And I'm like, oh my God, that was so good. So yeah, I think there's so much acting in it. I recently got like bad news and was like crying in an Uber, and then got dropped off at a set, made people laugh, and then went back to crying.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I think
life.
it was like my third or fourth weekend here, and it was John Reap. And so this was when I was still on the door, so I would kind of like mosey into the showroom, and watch a little bit. And his first show, I was like, man, this guy's fucking electric. He's crazy. Oh my God, he's doing shit off the cuff. And then I watched it the next night and I go, he's doing the exact same thing, the exact same way, the same beats, breath patterns, and everything. You go, oh, okay, this is more monologue than stand up. And that's the way it is for everybody, where, you know, I messed up that word, or hey, I'm watching TV. Oh, well, I'm not watching TV. I'm at the. It's a fucking performance, and it's so brilliant and beautiful when you can see it as such.
Yeah, we're not just out here improving an hour, except it's interesting to see like how people improv and how they change things or how they edit things night to night. But also, stand-ups are actors, because I know plenty of stand-ups who are actually quite shy. And like you'll see them in the green room and you expect them to just be like lighting everyone up, and they're just like enjoying themselves, very quiet. And I'm like, oh, so this is how you express yourself creatively, but this is you in a social setting.
Yeah, I've had comics who you'd be like, oh, this motherfucker's crazy, and they won't make eye contact in the green room. Where you're like, oh, this is wild.
That's a different kind of crazy. No, I'm a stand because like I've dated stand-up, so I'm like, oh, I know what he's really like, and the shit he's talking about on stage, he does not make women come. Like, let's just be honest, okay? End scene.
Yeah, right? I'm gonna end on that. Hey, dude, you ain't making women come. That's gonna be my new heckle. I can't wait. Lies.
You're just heckling as the manager. I love that. It's like, hey, there's a guy back there, and they're like, he's the manager. We can't kick him out. But
so lastly, one of my favorite stories about Mark Curry, he heckled his feature the whole time. So the dude it was, like half full or something, and the guy'd be like, yeah, and then, I was eating popcorn, and Mark would be like, popcorn? God damn, this motherfucker said popcorn. And everyone would laugh at what it was, oh, this poor feature, yo. I felt so bad. But you can't say nothing to the headliner. What are you going to say, get out or stop heckling? It's just, that's how it runs.
Oh my God, that guy was bored. He was bored, and that brought him joy. So that's whatever you need to do as a feature, you do it to bring the headliner happiness.
Hannah, where can people, you have a couple podcasts and shit, but where can people go fuck with you?
HannahBerner.com, all my tour dates, all over the place, West Coast, East Coast, South, North, whatever. I'm learning a lot about where places are in the US because I'm a stupid New Yorker. And then listen to my podcast, Burning in Hell, a mental health comedy podcast, and Giggly Squad for more pop culture. And follow me everywhere on Being Burns, BeingBernz.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so very much. I hope I didn't piss Debbie off with any of this. But it was so nice to talk to you.
No, you're good. This was much easier than reality TV interviews.
Oh, I think no, I don't know if that's a compliment, yo, because they suck.
It is a compliment.
Those people are the worst interviewers of all time. What are you talking about?
No, like hard as in like, oh, this is, yeah, not stuff I want to talk about.
Bet. All right, well, hopefully I'll see you in Portland sometime. Add it to the calendar. And good luck on your tour.